Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who always comes through with a breakdown in the Rick of time. Puns are getting worse, but I've been doing this for 7 episodes, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the latest Rick and Morty entry, Gotron Jerrysis Rickvangelion. Probably pronounced that wrong as well, but it's filled with Easter eggs, hidden details, things you missed, as well as several callbacks to movies and TV shows. Now this episode was accidentally leaked on several streaming services as it was posted instead of Rick dependent spray. There's clearly been a lot of panic behind the scenes, and my last 2 breakdowns were actually blocked by Adult Swim for a couple of hours, which was quite annoying. Fingers crossed that this one doesn't go down, and though the episode is heavily inspired by Voltron, the title of the episode actually pulls from its Japanese counterpart, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Throughout the episode, the family meet with 4 other versions of themselves, and we watch as the quote-unquote Gotrons are made up of 5 pieces, which combine with 5 other larger combinations in order to make an ultimate version called a Go-Go-Gotron. The word Go actually means 5 in Japanese, so this all ties it together, and it's like poetry, they rhyme. Now we start off with Rick, Morty and Summer travelling to Boob World. We learn it was originally just a celebration of boobs, but due to protests they've had to rebrand as a female empowerment experience, which is the only reason why they brought Summer along. Boob World was actually first mentioned in Rattlestar Galactica, but like this entry, we never actually got to go there. However, when we meet the 4 other families that are brought in from the multiverse, we discover they actually all went there as they didn't come across the Gotron ferret like our trio do at the start. In the cockpit they find the corpse of the blue pilot, and this is a reference to the show Go Lion, in which the blue pilot also died in episode 6. A bit of retconning brought him back, but it's hilarious that they link into that in order to show why one of the Gotrons is down. Rick says he's going to give Morty the choice to either go to Boob World or to hook up the Gotron to the ship, and though Morty chooses the former, Rick steamrolls ahead with his plan anyway. Later on, the Gotron pilots end up trying to bribe Morty with boob bucks for Boob World, and the fact that he turns them down when he wanted nothing more than to go there shows how far he's come. This is where we get our first voiceover, which we learn is due to some parasites called voice ovarians. Heh, ovarian. Now this is clearly a nod to Goodfellas, which gets several Easter eggs in this episode, and throughout it Summer and Morty give several monologues, much like how Henry Hill did in order to describe how the mafia worked. Summer becomes addicted to being Rick's sidekick, and she says that she knew then and there that she wanted more. This is pretty much paraphrasing Henry's first introduction to the mafia in Goodfellas, and like him, the character has a rise and fall. Now shoutouts to tvtropes.org for pointing out that Summer actually ends up developing a personality disorder throughout the episode, which is called acquired situational narcissism. Because she enables Rick throughout the entry, she quickly becomes his favourite, and this makes her start to act against the rest of the family. The website also pointed out she later develops something called toxic friend influence, which a lot more simpler sounding. In real life, this is someone who peer pressures you into doing things like staying up late, watching leaked episodes of Rick and Morty, and also disliking videos. Now unfortunately, her enabling Rick to do more and more makes him turn on her, and she eventually snaps out of it when Rick fires her too. Now from here we cut to the title sequence, and as always this is the part of the video where I ask you to thumbs up and subscribe. If you do this, you'll enable me and you'll actually become my favourite until I have no use for you and I just cast you to the side to go hang out with other YouTubers like Philip DeFranco and maybe Tati Westbrook or something. I don't know. Is she cancelled this week or is she good again? I don't know. But cheers for the likes, you bitches. Now whilst the titles were happening, we learn that Rick, Summer and Morty were collecting the other 4 Gotrons. Morty pulls his boot off and sniffs it, and says that it smells skeleton-y, clearly meaning that they found the other Gotron pilots dead, and I wouldn't be seen dead in that costume. Hey, you having that now? It's at this point that Beth mentions the giant incest baby, who we last saw at the end of Rick Dependent Spray. This baby ends up popping up later on in the episode as a way to fight the Go-Go-Gotron, and we learn that Summer called it Naruto, another nod to anime and manga. Summer says that they get the family they get and not the one they want, which Morty later brings up and says that a great leader once said it. Summer is often overlooked, and in Rick Dependent Spray, the president gave the scientist a Nobel Peace Prize, even though it was Summer who came up with the baby idea. This kind of brings the arc of that full circle and shows that she can have input and that the family do value her. They manage to convince Beth and Jerry to come with them to Nibblenook, which is where they fight against a giant kaiju. Not only is this of course playing on the trope of the characters in Voltron constantly fighting giant beasts at the end of every episode, but also the film Pacific Rim. In that, giant monsters arrived on Earth through a portal in the ocean in order to destroy the planet, and humanity had to arm up in massive mech suits in order to fight back. In the post-credits scene, we learn that these monsters are actually normal-sized bugs that travel through an interdimensional doorway in the hopes of giving humanity a cure for AIDS. However, their clothes are stripped as they're turned into giants, and we're unable to understand them, so it just leads to us attacking them, and they then defend themselves. The family travelling to the Gotrons is pretty much exactly how the suit-up scenes happen in Voltron, and at first they zipline down, which is what happens in the show. They then travel to subterranean tunnels and emerge from locations around the world. This includes a volcano, the ocean, an icy cave, and also a waterfall. Because Morty is a little punk though, he comes out of a car park, and who knows, maybe the theories about this season being the origin story for Evil Morty are indeed right. Rick once more uses the portal gun, which has now appeared 3 times in a row in the series, perhaps hinting at this one being the real one, whilst all the episodes before which didn't have it were in fact decoys. They arrive at a parody of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and are beaten at first, but they combine together to make a Mega Gotron, and they defeat it by just hitting buttons. They also form a luminous energy sword, which is from the show. Now after beating the bug, we can see Rick drinking alcohol again and the dribble forming around his mouth. It was thought that Rick might have gone teetotal in the season, as there were several points early on in which he wasn't drinking. The dribble hasn't really been there, and the character also hasn't been burping all the time, but this changes up in the episode as he gains more and more power. Rick is obsessed with making an even bigger Gotron, and thus he summons 4 other families to pilot the other ferrets. Just before this though, we see the outside of the house, and you might notice on the front garden and driveway that there's a big crack around it. This was first spotted all the way back in Rick's business, before reappearing in A Wrinkle in Time. We aren't still 100% what's going on with it, but leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Now the 5 family meeting feels very similar to the wedding which opened The Godfather. Whilst everyone has dinner on the outside and a band plays, inside the Ricks talk business. Rick is referred to as C-137, which is the version thought to be from the main timeline, and the other versions pull heavily from The Godfather. We have one which looks like Don Corleone called Big Fat Rick, Hothead Rick who is a nod to Sonny, and Little Ricky Wrap It Up who's playing on Fredo. In The Godfather, Al Pacino played Michael, however he also played Scarface in another movie, which is what Ricardo Montoya is referring to. Later on in the episode, when Rick has amassed his empire, he sits in a cockpit which looks a lot like the hall from Tony Montana's mansion. Rick wants to bring everyone into their universe, and initially Hothead Rick has an outburst during the deal, which is similar to the scene in The Godfather when Sonny has one during the narcotics meeting. He's almost killed when trying to get to his car, and in The Godfather, Sonny was of course gunned down whilst he was outside his. Michael's wife was also murdered in a car bomb, but Hothead Rick survives, and he goes off to plan his revenge. They pull in Yo-Yo Rick instead, and we watch as a montage plays out in which the Ricks kill the Gotron pilots. The montage feels very similar to the ending of The Godfather, when several characters were all assassinated at once, and we watch as this goes from a fun adventure into a crime family one. They end up providing protection for Earth, and killing lots of kaiju along the way in mafia type hits. These include curb stomping one against a dam, which is an execution style that several hitmen have carried out. There's also a bit in which they make a kaiju dig its own grave with another bug beside it. This could be a reference to Tommy's death in Goodfellas, in which he was forced into a grave alongside his brother in retribution for the bat's murder. They also get a giant centipede and put lots of buckets of cement around its feet before throwing it into the sea. We then see a Jerry murdered as a warning, and Yo-Yo Rick ends up getting moved around so that he's not killed. Summer ends up demoting Morty, and this is a nod to The Godfather and Godfather 2, in which Fredo was slowly demoted and put in charge of family issues that didn't really matter. He wasn't respected, and because of this he ended up betraying his brother, which led to his death. Rick slowly gets worse and worse, and he embarrasses everyone at a party, which is when the characters get the idea that he's slowly turning evil. Now I feel like this moment is a nod to The Godfather 2, namely the lavish party when Michael realised that Fredo had betrayed him. Michael ended up kissing Fredo, which was a nod to when Judas kissed Jesus before his betrayal. Outside, Morty comes face to face with the Gotron pilots, who look exactly like how they do in the anime, and they want Morty to betray his family from the inside. He says that he won't because Summer is his sibling, which juxtaposes how Fredo betrayed Michael, even though he was his brother. They accuse the family of cultural appropriation, and whilst this is going on, Hothead Rick ends up attacking the party and killing most of the people there. Beth gives Morty money and says she has to turn her back on him, which is exactly what Paulie said to Henry in Goodfellas before he cut him off. Henry too showed up in a beat up suit, but that's because he was a coke addict and not because he got in a car crash. Now moving on, things start looking up for Summer, but they ended up bringing in replacement families to help the organisation, and none of them respected her. Rick slowly spiraled into his own addiction of Gotron, and he decided to recruit outside the family, namely Kendra, who we can see survived the crash. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, we can see that she's reading a magazine called Gundam, which has an RX-78 head on it, which is an Easter egg that links to the anime Gundam. Rick gets rid of the whole family, and though they talk about killing Summer, they welcome her back with open arms. She tells them that the government ended up capturing the giant incest baby as they wanted to use it as a weapon. They wanted to see if it would respond to her, and though she was meant to discipline it, she trained it to love and then escape. This is a trope that's appeared in a lot of monster movies where they force a woman in to communicate with the beast. It's happened in several films such as King Kong, Sputnik, but I think that this version is riffing slightly on Shape of Water due to the military outpost design. Morty knows that the Gotron pilots will betray Rick in order to take the robot, and they attack him out in space. Rick says, "Say hello to my little me," whilst firing a gun that looks like him, and this is obviously a nod to say hello to my little friend from Scarface. He's shot, but when it looks like things are over, the family arrive on the baby to take the pilot out. We see several of them sucked into space, and even one that's choked to death by hanging. Outside of Kendra, the blue is the last one to die, which juxtaposes the opening of the episode in which it was the first. Yes, I like saying juxtapose because it makes me sound smarter than I actually am. Now Kendra is killed and the family save Rick, but rather than accepting that he caused a lot of problems, Rick just stops talking about the Gotrons. Summer says the giant bugs that are still running rampant can never kill her family, but we see that Jerry is left outside of the house to fight them. Now that ends the episode, and yet again, I'm kinda torn on the season so far. It started off really well, but I think over time they've kind of lost direction. Though the episodes are all pretty fun and their parodies are spot on, I kind of feel like they're almost combining too many at once. I was speaking to Superhero on X's about this earlier in the week, and there's a lot of times where they just take random things and mesh them together. This can lead to the episodes pulling in one direction for some parts and completely different ones in the others, which to me feels tonally disjointed. Now that's not to say it's bad, but I am really torn on this one. Though I think it's pretty strong on the most part, they're just not hitting the same heights that they were in earlier seasons. Still though, overall, it was fun, and as always, the jokes worked really well. I think we're just kind of in a rut at the moment where they take some movies, parody them, make Rick go a bit bad, and then have him turn back to the family at the end. Hope that everything sort of comes full circle, and though I don't think that this series will be the origin of Evil Morty, I would actually enjoy it if that turned out to be the case. Gonna be weird seeing how the whole thing wraps up, as we are heading towards the last 3 episodes for this season, and hopefully they've saved the best for last, as I do want to see some bangers. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode, so comment below and let me know. We are running a competition right now and giving away 3 MCU box sets on the 30th of July, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of last week's episode, which will be linked on screen right now. We pointed out all the Easter eggs we could find and the callbacks to movies, so it's definitely worth watching if you enjoyed that entry. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.